In the pages of Marvel Comics' X-Men suite of titles, the publisher is in the final phases of the X-Men's multi-year Krakoan era of comics. In Fall of the House of X, readers have gotten to see Cyclops get close to this brand new Sentinel-City division of Orchis, as well as the mysterious doctor known as Alia Gregor. Plus, some of the Stark Sentinels have now been unleashed all across the globe over from Orchis, and our team of X-Men are just now trying to fight back. My name is Arakel Braddock, and today, let's go ahead and chronicle some of the last stages of the Krakoan suite of comics in the pages of Fall of the House of X. But before we get deeper into the video, I want to encourage you to consider subscribing to the channel. My ally, my enemy. They say a wounded animal can be the most dangerous kind of animal to face. As the fight between the mutants and Orchis reaches a deadly pitch, a startling revelation rocks the X-Men to their core. The two series that are one come together in one horrible betrayal as the Krakoan Age nears its deadly conclusion. So Fall of the House of X Chapter 4 is still written from Gerry Duggan. This one features artwork from both Lucas Werneck and Jethro Morales. We have colors over from Bryan Valenza, letters from VC's Travis Lanham, and the design for the Krakoan era books is illustrated from Tom Muller and J. Bowen. In addition, here the cover for Fall of the House of X is coming in over from Pepe Larraz and Marte Gracia. Really love this epic cover detailing some of Cyclops' battles during the late stage Krakoan era of X-Men comics. Also want to give a quick thank you over to Adventures in Poor Taste and detail some of the opening pages coming in from Lucas Werneck and Jethro Morales in terms of Fall of the House of X4. I really found that this issue kicked off on a beautiful note here as the character of Apocalypse is returning, but this time he's actually trying to help out the X-Men and the Krakoan tree in particular. Across some of the opening pages of Fall of the House of X, it's just so beautiful to witness Apocalypse fighting back against some of these Orchis goons. One of my favorite aspects of Fall of the House of X4 was really seeing how the plot thread over with Apocalypse developed over time. As the issue starts, it's so wonderful to see the character finally help out some of our X-Men heroes in trying to nurse Krakoa back to health. But some of the big ramifications that Apocalypse has to take on end up getting darker and darker throughout the course of the issue. Some of the final exchanges that Apocalypse has with his fellow X-Men characters is just so bleak and highlights the really interesting tone that so many of these Krakoa comic books have featured. I've also really liked the connective tissue in the comic book pertaining over to the X-Men Red series, and found that the cliffhanger really nicely reunited Apocalypse with a character who he's had some interesting interactions with in some of the final stages of the Krakoan Age of comics. Fall of the House of X4 also beautifully utilizes the plot thread over with Cyclops pertaining to Dr. Gregor and Sentinel City. In the last issue of Fall of the House of X, this thread got incredibly bleak, and I think some of the follow-up here carries those sinister, ominous overtones and shows Cyclops trying to adapt to his new situation. I really found the character of Magic was able to motivate him fairly quickly within the course of the issue, and also seeing Cyclops reunite with some of his fellow X-Men was incredibly cathartic to see across this series as well. This subplot developed in a really interesting way as it was able to use the character of Nimrod to transition from a scene with Cyclops over to Professor Xavier just before the credits page. I think it's so interesting with the way that Gerry Duggan has been able to transition these scenes along with the artistic team that's really been incorporated through so much of Fall of the House of X. Now, in terms of the visuals, this is a really interesting issue to discuss. I think on the whole here, Lucas Werneck delivers some really incredibly curvy lines that capture just so much detail and aesthetic for the X-Men's battle against Orchis that particularly plays out across the second half of the issue. However, I did find that some of the artistic sequences that were illustrated by Jethro Morales for characters like Emma Frost carried some facial details that were too similar to one another and did detract from my enjoyment of the issue. At this point, I'm wondering if some of the artistic deadlines on Fall of the House of X detracted from the quality of the art. Overall, here though, I think that some of these blemishes are fairly minor, and as a whole, here, I think Fall of the House of X is still quite beautiful, especially when you factor in the opening page that we looked at earlier and the tease of the mysterious cliffhanger character on the final page as well. One aspect about Follow the House of X and the Krakoan Age of comics that's just continued to impress me is just how many plot threads each of these writers are able to implement from the Krakoan Age of comics in just one issue of X-Men. Whether it be longtime X-Men foes like Omega Sentinel, characters that have been lingering in the background of the Krakoan era like Sunfire, or people that have had such just a pivotal role in X-Men comics like Apocalypse. I am just really struck by the way that Duggan just continually manages to implement so many plot threads and really make Fall of the House of X right now feel like the main X-Men title that's just integral to the line here. So overall, I think Fall of the House of X Chapter 4 is yet another really compelling issue of the series, doing a great job to redeem the character of Apocalypse in a much different context. I'm also so struck with how this issue is able to bring back so many plot threads from X-Men Red in a really creative and interesting capacity. One of my favorite plot threads in Fall of the House of X pertains to the character of Cyclops and his investigation to the mysterious sentinelcity. I found this issue just worked in a couple of really interesting ways to advance this storyline and still reference everything that Cyclops has struggled through in order to get to this point during the Krakoan era. But I want to know from you, what are some of your thoughts over on this issue of Follow the House of X? Did you find some of the mutant sacrifices to be as compelling as I did? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you one last time for coming to check out our video review over on Follow the House of X issue 4, and we'll be back to watch the end of the Krakoan era wind down.